Good morning once again. We are now moving on to the first session for today, which will be facilitated by the Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency, OYSADA. Please join me as I welcome the facilitator for today's event in person of Mr. Okuola Olushola.
Àwọn sàáìkà wọn máa ṣe dáadáa lájí o. Ẹ kú ètò yìí, ètò aláyọ̀ ni. Mo mú ìkíni wá láti ọ̀dọ̀ olùdámọ̀ràn sí gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ní ẹ̀ka ti Agribusiness, Dr. Debo Akande. Àwọn ló yẹ kí wọ́n wá sí bíbá yìí lónìí, ṣùgbọ́n iṣẹ́ ìlú kò jẹ́ kí wọ́n lè wá. I want to appreciate the organizers. This beautiful, it's a concept to encourage our youth and also the farmers. I want to appreciate the SARS and MAS for this wonderful thing. And then the ability to gather our youth together. I was asked to speak straight to agribusiness in Oyo State and also to encourage our youths on how we could tackle the entrance into agribusiness in Oyo State or anywhere in the world. I want to let us know the trajectory of agribusiness as a whole, particularly in Oyo State. This concept or idea came to know almost immediately when this present administration came on board in 2019 to believe that you cannot be doing the same thing the same way and have different results. So in the agricultural process of Oyo State, over the years, it has been supply and supply of input to our farmers. I've been in the business of supplying input to farmers over 20 years. Ohun tí mo ń sọ lọ́wọ́ ni pé mo kí àwọn bàbá wa, mo lè kí àwọn ọmọ wa, torí mo rí pé àmúlùmọ́lá la máa ṣe tẹ̀ ní òwúrọ̀ yìí. A dúpẹ́ fún ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ tí wọ́n yí ìpinnu bó ni a ṣe lè ṣe ọ̀gbìn nígbà òde òní, tí wọ́n yí ìpinnu yẹn padà, tí wọ́n tún fi kún gbogbo tá a ti ń ṣe láti ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ over 40 years ago. Òun ni pé ká ran àgbẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ láti fi lè produce èrè oko wọn, ṣùgbọ́n beyond ojú ká ran àgbẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ nìkan lọ, nítorí pé population wa ó ń pọ̀ sí i. One of the problems we are facing is the high population and then the aging population of our farmers who are the producers. So it's a serious problem. If you look at it on the average, presently we have around 60 to 65 years of age of our farmers on the fields. So there's a problem of grant, and if some problem is not addressed, we continue to experience what we are experiencing, because few people are producing, many people are eating. So it's just the law of supply and demand. So that is why this government, when they came on board, the first meeting His Excellency had outside this country was a summit in Cotonou. The technocrats in agriculture were brought together to see how this could be done and be done effectively. It was at that gathering that OYSADA, Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency, was developed. That okay, there's going to be an agency under the governance service where the responsibility of bringing investors to develop Oyo State in the area of allied agribusiness, will be done. Ẹ rí pé láti ìgbà yìí wá, ohun tá à ń ṣe l'Ọ́yọ́ State, òun náà ni kí àwọn àgbẹ̀ wa kí wọ́n produce oúnjẹ, kí wọ́n dẹ́ta bẹ́ẹ̀. Kò sí value addition, òun tí àwọn olóyìnbó pè ní processing most time kò fi bẹ́ẹ̀ sí lọ títí. Lẹ́yìn ẹ̀gẹ́ nìkan gbá tó wà famous, a fi ẹ̀gẹ́, a fi ṣe gàrí, a fi ṣe láǹfù, and lọ́jọ́ báyìí lọ over 30 years, over 40 years. So that's why ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ rò pé rárá o, a gbọ́dọ̀ tẹ̀síwájú jù báyìí lọ. That ordinarily government does not have business in doing business. The government so much believe that it's going to hand over the agribusiness into the hands of the investors that will develop Oyo State for us. If I will tell you some, or actually most of the farm settlements we have in Oyo State have been driven by the government. There's what we call government build, government operate, government design, government operate. So it has been government. Let me cite the example of Fashola Agribusiness Industrial Hub or Transformation Center that government builds today. It was when the concept was adopted, government believed that okay, let me do my part. Let government build the structure, and then let government design, government build the structure, and then let's invite the investor to take it over. And that is what we've been doing in the last 3-4 years at Fashola, and also now Irua and Jai. I'll be telling us how this development came to be. So at Fashola presently, let me first start from OYSADA. Yes, in the objective of OYSADA realized that youths are very paramount. So 2 out of the 6 objectives of OYSADA was put aside for youth development in Oyo State. Maybe some of us will have heard of YIP. YIP is one of the objectives of OYSADA. When this government came on board, we are asked to recruit youths, which we recruited about 100 of them initially. And then we gathered them at our RCGC. So, and then we have collaboration with IIT, with IFAC projects on how we can do this thing and do it better. So, it's ìjọba ìṣègbà ẹni pé àwọn àgbẹ̀ wa wọ́n ti dàgbà, kò lè sí agbára bí ti gbà kan mọ́, population wa ó ń pọ̀ sí ni. Ìgbésẹ̀ tí ìjọba gbé gbà tí wọ́n wọlé, òun ni láti dá sílẹ̀ ilé iṣẹ́ tí ó fún àwọn ọ̀dọ́ wa tó fún wọn níyànjú, tó gbà wọn níyànjú, tó lè ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́ láti rí pé àwọn náà padà wá sí ìlú iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀, láti replace àwọn bàbá wa tí èjì òsì ní sáàdì wọn mọ́, láti ṣe kó dára ju bí àwọn bàbá yẹn bí wọ́n ti ń ṣe lọ. So and when we started, we gathered 100 of them at our and we trained them on tomato production. So we were there for about 6 months. His Excellency visited. We housed them, we give them food, and even government also give them stipends of 20,000 naira every month. So just to encourage them. But when we discovered that it has to go throughout the 6 regions of Oyo State we have, that's the commercial, Oyo, Ibadan, Okeogun, Okeogun 2, Ibadan Less, Ibadan Urban, and also Ibarapa. That was when government said that no, we cannot go this way, it's going to take time. So it was in the mind of His Excellency and also concepts adopted by OYSADA that we should pick 100 from all the local governments. We have 3 local governments in the LC. So we picked them, 3,300 of them were sent to Nasarawa for intensive agribusiness training. So they went and then they came back. And then not only to train them, we know that even training alone is an empowerment for the youth that knows it. So for some of them that came from Nasarawa, they stood on their own. They began to practice what they have learned, because we made it open for the youth to choose when you get there. So and then when they got there, they were inspired. So some choose livestock, some choose agriculture, some choose fishery, some choose processing, and then we biometrically capture them so that we can follow them up. So some of them that will follow up, they also benefited from government projects that we call NKS. So every year in the last 3-4 years, we have been calling to give them something, at least to support them in the business of agribusiness, of Agribusiness, taking to. So, across the 33 local government, there was even a time we gathered 100 of them at fractional to give them lands, 100 hectares, 1 hectare per youth. So government did virtually everything. We did the planting operation and also post-planting operation. In fact, we did the first reading for them, and then before we asked them to take over. So, and then some of them, very few of them were committed. I have to say this at this point in time. I want to encourage our youth. There will be a time of encouragement and talking to our youth. Farming, maybe possibly because of the drudgery involved in it, some of our youth might not want to come into it. But what we are encouraging is to make it sexy, to introduce technology that will make it more easier and comfortable for our youth to embark upon. Nígbà tí ìjọba ń wo pé kékeré tí àkójọ ní 100 yẹn ní awẹ́ nígbà tó tó nǹkan kan ń náwó ọlọ́lá jùlọ wọn fọwọ́ sí wọn ní ká mú 100 ní local government kọ̀ọ̀kan àní local government ti 33 ní Ọ̀yọ́ state, so wọ́n lè jẹ́ 3,300 ní ìjọba kó lọ sí Nasarawa for the period of maybe about 5 months, 3,300 per trade. So na kó lọ sí Nasarawa 2 per month, because 2 weeks ni wọ́n lò níbẹ̀, so 2 times per month in a month ní a máa kó wọn lọ. Àwọn tó wá kọ́ lọ ní first 2 weeks á lọ kó wọn mọ́tò ìwọ̀n tó kó wọn wá. So ilé ìfihàn wa akitiyan ìjọba pẹ̀lú àwọn ọ̀dọ́ wa. Kò tó wá tún síbẹ̀ o, wọ́n tó wá ní kí a ṣe a bit research. We went to our secondary schools, JSS1 and then the SS1, láti conduct ìgbéyẹ̀wò kan. Ibi kí ló dé tí àwọn ọ̀dọ́ wa tí wọ́n fi fẹ́ràn agriculture, ìyẹn gan láti kọ́kọ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀, kí ló dé tí wọ́n fi fẹ́ràn iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀? Torí tẹ́ bá mú àwọn ọmọdé wa jọ ní àwọn mẹ́wàá, tẹ́ bá ní kí wọ́n sọ iṣẹ́ tí wọ́n fẹ́, ọ̀pọ̀ ọ̀gbà wọn máa sọ fún yín pé àwọn to be a medical doctor, wọ́n á ní àwọn fẹ́ di lawyer, wọ́n á ní àwọn fẹ́ di aeronautic engineer. So kò sí ìdí ó sọ fún yín pé mo fẹ́ di àgbẹ̀, and then we make it open. Òyà kí ló dé ẹ̀yọ́ wọn tẹ̀ fẹ́ fi ṣiṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀? Wọ́n ní àgbẹ̀, àwọn àgbẹ̀ wa, àwọn ò láìpẹ́ wọ́n ṣe máa ń dọ̀tí. Ẹlòmíràn sọ pé ẹsẹ̀ lásán náà kọ̀ gbà nínú oko ló máa fẹ́ rìn. Àwọn mìíràn sọ pé wọn kì í lo mọ́tò, àgbẹ̀ ó lo mọ́tò. Ẹlòmíràn sọ pé àyínú oko gan làgbẹ̀ ń pè wọn gbónú ìlú, àwọn dẹ́gbẹ́ máa gbónú ìlú, àwọn ọkọ̀ gbé oko. So all these things culminated to the reason why we established the second objective. So what government did, we adapted a particular program, start them early program by IITA. So Oyo State adapted because we have the collaborations with IITA. So tí ìjọba ṣe gbà ẹni pé àwa wo àwọn iṣẹ́ tí àwọn èèyàn ti ṣe sílẹ̀, àrígbé IITA wọ́n ti ṣe iṣẹ́ ní ìlànà àwọn ọmọdé yẹn tí wọ́n fi kọ́ wọn níbi kò rí bẹ́ẹ̀. So what Oyo State government did, we choose some secondary schools. So àwa fún wọn ní irinṣẹ́ ìgbàlódé òun ìjọba fún wọn láti fi lè rí pé wàhálà tó wà nínú iṣẹ́ oko ó dínkù. Fún àpẹẹrẹ, ìjọba fún wọn ní mini tractor tó jẹ́ pé mower tí wọ́n lè fi kọ oko ìjọba fún wọn ní ìfínkù tí wọ́n á kàn gbé sẹ́yìn ìsinmi pé wọ́n máa fọwọ́ tẹ̀ wọ́n bá ti press button yẹn olùkọ́ máa fi káàkiri oko ìjọba fún wọn ní so many equipment tá a fún wọn wọn ò ní fi ọwọ́ máa gbé koríko kò sí àgbà mẹ́ wọ́n ti fún wọn ní àwọn mowers and brush cutters brush cutters náà ní tí wọ́n fi lè máa gbé koríko eléyìí òun láti jẹ́ kí inú àwọn ọ̀dọ́ wa àwọn ọmọ wa kí wọ́n dùn sí iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ this already change their orientations and for the youth the youth that also went to Nasarawa for the training so it also changed a lot of orientations about it by the time they came back so and then we have testimonies as regards to that so and then ìjọba ọdún níbẹ̀ ìjọba wa rí i pé ó yàtọ̀ sí pé àwọn training àwọn ọ̀dọ́ wa àwọn dẹ̀ tó fún ọ ní ìrànlọ́wọ́ níbi iṣẹ́ tí wọ́n ń ṣe ìjọba tó ní òkè ẹ jẹ́ ká fún wọn ní owó ìrànwọ́ tó jẹ́ loan so that is we call it Jeep loan saver saver yẹn òní nígbà tí ìjọba yọ ìrànwọ́ orí epo kúrò so ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ owó bí báwo la ṣe fẹ́ ran gbogbo àgbẹ̀ wa lọ́wọ́ so a lot of things iná fún àgbẹ̀ nígbà yẹn ìjọba fún àgbẹ̀ ní owó ìrànwọ́ through ACOS ìjọba rí mú fún subsidy kúrò ní owó tractorization àti sí àgbẹ̀ bá fẹ́ tractorize ní wọ́n á fẹ́ bóyá 20 acres or hectares ìjọba ní ẹ̀mú ìlàjì owó wa ẹ̀yin náà fi ìlàjì owó yẹn ẹ̀fi kún so every year olùjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ náà fún àwọn àgbẹ̀ wa ní inputs fertilizer seeds organics and even the herbicide through the NPR program every year àtúntò ń ṣe ètò ní báyìí bá ti ṣe fún àwọn àgbẹ̀ ní ọdún yìí so ayé duplicate àgbẹ̀ tó bá gbàgbé ọdún yìí so ọ̀tọ̀ lélẹ́yìn tó gbàgbé ọdún tó pọ̀ eléyìí ní pé láti fi lè rí gbígbé iṣẹ́ wọn ó gbèrò sí i but ibi tí Agribusiness ti wọlé dé lélẹ́yìí the objective of OYSADA is to build Oyo State into a modern agribusiness hub. Ní ilé-iṣẹ́ tá a lè sọ pé ilé-iṣẹ́ ti nípa ètò ọ̀gbìn ní Ọ̀yọ́ State. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bá dé Ògùnpa, èmi ta ti ta kẹ́míkà, ta ti ra kẹ́míkà, ta ti ra fertilizer, ta ti ra gbogbo èròjà inú síìdì tó kọ́mọ̀ jù lọ́kùn wá láti lè méjì, kò sí kankan ní Ọ̀yọ́ State. So ìjọba wa rò pé no, we must establish industries and then invite investors to drive it. So ìtìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ṣe ni pé we give investors enabling environment for their businesses to thrive because the essence of any business is to make profit. Nígbà máa ní wá sóòwò tí mi ò jèrè mẹ́, I will be definitely destroyed. So eléyìí we went through the southwestern state to see the modus operandi, the modalities in which they give their investors or in which they allow their investors to operate in their state. Oyo State government removed all the bottlenecks, every bottleneck, just from if you have your money within a week, you get a space. So what I was saying is, talking about the effort of Oyo State government in the establishment of agribusiness in Oyo State, and also in supporting youth in the development of agribusiness. So this government is youth friendly in virtually all the agricultural activities that is happening in Oyo State. So I was just itemizing what the Oyo State government have done to make sure that our youth come back to agriculture, come back to agribusiness. And we are doing it in such a way, creating an enabling environment, for a better, easier entrance into agriculture. So for the youth, I have said that Oyo State government trained them. Oyo State government did not train them through OYSADA. Oyo State also give them opportunity to practice what they have learned via so many projects we also introduce to them. We give them inputs. Oyo State also give them the subsidy, removing subsidy on tractorization. So Oyo State continue to supply and to support our youth. Recently, that is going to be done, is going to be, flagged up by His Excellency, the Governor of Oyo State, Governor Oluseyi Abiodun. On Monday is a flag off to give our youth loan to support them. So that is, we have identified youths that have their private enterprise, that have their farms, and they are doing well. So we are so much proud of them, and government wants to continue to support them so that they can increase the food bank of Oyo State. And if you look at it structurally, Oyo State is at the center. If you tell you Oyo State is a gateway to the north and also to some part of the south, is what we have seen. On the field, we have seen in the last 5 months, we interacted with Hausa people coming to Oyo State to Baghdad from the north. And this is apart from the neighboring states that come to Oyo State to live farm produce as well. So that's why Oyo State have to be re-strategized and position itself in such a way that we will not lack anything when it comes to food production and processing. So Fashola was created. The Fashola we have is a one-stop shop, is a home away from home, where government builds 10 factories, government builds houses, resident houses, luxury houses, government builds sports complexes, where investors that come around to invest their money will also have value for the money. So it is a secure place, and it is also fenced. So the issue of encroachment by the invaders, let me mention it, by the invader is out of it. So it is an environment that is good for agribusiness development. We did not, in our MOU, be specific about what a farmer or an investor can do. We ask them, come, do what you are practicing. And there are processes that lead to this. I was just telling us that virtually all the bottlenecks the Western government through OYSADA has removed from any investor that is coming to Oyo State to invest. That is for Fashola. We also have for Irua, that is undergoing the ESMP report, and also Ijai that is awaiting the ESIA report. So, and then for Fashola, we have 10 factories. We have about presently 16 investors inside the Fashola, and not all of them are on that factory. The factory is fully booked, and even the land is oversubscribed in Fashola presently. So also we are also working on Ijai for SAPZ. SAPZ with partners, all the OYSADA partners with so many development partners like World Bank, African Development Bank, IFA, IITA, and so on and so forth. So what we are doing is that government alone cannot do it. Like His Excellency mostly said, that if government have invested 5 billion in Fashola, definitely the investors must have invested 15 billion. And it is true, it's quite clear. When we get there, we will see what government has done, and then what individual investors have done. So this is to complement government efforts. Apart from the IGR provisions, employment, presently as I'm telling you, over 500 employments, both direct and indirect, have gainfully employed in Fashola presently. So, and these are youths. It's also served as a research center for our youth. Many states have visited us. And as small as that place is a 1,200 HA, is the first in the country. The first of its kind in the country. So, I want to give kudos to Oyo State government, led by Governor Oluseyi Abiodun, and also the Director General of OYSADA, who has done so much work to navigate through the borders in which has been blocking development in the last so many decades, in the last 3 decades. So that is the trajectory in which Oyo State, the new era in which Oyo State is entering through the agribusiness, drawing international investors to Nigeria and to Oyo State. Oyo State is the only first state in the country where the president of the nation will visit to see how we structure the agribusiness. In fact, we visited Fashola, to see what we are doing. So, for Ijaye, not less than 10 industries to be there. For Ijaye, not less than 30 industries to be there. For Ilua, not less than 10 industries to be there. And government is working, around the clock to make sure that this is done. In the area of supporting our youth, government is not relenting its efforts. And that culminates to the plan to give our youth loan that I was talking about. It's going to be done on Monday. The platform is going to be done on Monday by His Excellency to make sure that our youth were not only supported by training or by giving them small inputs, they were also supported by loan to make sure that other necessary things were gotten. So we have so many entrances in which our youth will give time for questions and answers, that our youth can come in Oyo State. But at the same time, as I used to say, in any forum I find myself to encourage and support our youth, is that we need to develop passion for agriculture. Passion is the first thing, not even the money. Passion is zeal to make it via the business of agriculture. So I want to encourage our youth today that they are the future, not even of tomorrow again, of today. Because as we are inviting investors to develop Oyo State for us, they need material, the raw material for production. So if the raw material is not there, it's an issue. That's why Oyo State is making frantic efforts. Presently we have 2 companies that produces soya bean, that uses soya bean to produce a lot of things. Sometimes even oil, engine oil. So in this case, Oyo State has supported the soya bean farmers. Free input, free fertilizer, addition of road mass that ordinarily a farmer cannot afford because of the cost. So government has supported all our soya bean farmers to produce a mass so that our investors will have enough to use in Oyo State. So these are many other things we use, in this area. All the inputs we have been given, we make sure that not less than 40% inclusion of youth were there. For instance, if we gather 100 farmers in our guidelines, okay, let there be 40 youths, let there be 60 farmers. So this is an encouragement to make sure that our youth come back. And actually, in all the agrarian local governments, we have been seeing this effect of youth, even living in the rural community. When you get there, you see, and many of them are doing well. So I want to also use this opportunity to tell you that you have an advantage, even over us, over our fathers who have started this business so many years ago. Why? Because this is the time of you browsing, using online, different machineries to search, to make your work, more easier and more simpler, to search for knowledge. And when I was on the active, farming, people called me veterinary. They thought I was a veterinary doctor, and I wasn't one. And because of the passion I had for the business of poultry and business of agriculture, whenever I see a doctor doing, I will watch them closely. Supervision everything. And this as a first aid person. Whenever is happening to any farm, before they reach the veterinary doctor, they will call on me. Mr. Okola, please come and see this. And I will diagnose. So, and I will see what is happening. So, I will hear their thoughts. What is happening? Okay, this is what is happening. So, and then we will give the first arrest to reduce the mortality. So, it's all about passion. So, I want to encourage you, please develop it, you can make it. Because our fathers, you can see they are growing older and older, so they do not have the strength. And then we did not expect any youth to be using hoes and cutlasses to farm. No, at this point in time, it has to be mechanized. And once it's mechanized, you will have a lot of opportunity. So establish clear vision and purpose. So build community. That is the community I was talking about. If you build a community of farmers, if you are deficient in one, you will not be deficient in others. You will see others that will support you. So you have to be disciplined in whatever you are doing. Identify and empower leaders. So this is what the USA government has been doing. We have identified and empower groups of them that are leaders. 3,300 were taken to Nasarawa. Not all the 3,300 are practicing agriculture or the business. So we identify some of them that have their farms, and then we visit them, and then we are supporting them. So regular meeting and activities. So in the community you are living with, whether you are hiring farmers, you are fish farmers, you are into processing area, you need to identify and do regular meetings, support and care. That is what government is doing for our youth. We cannot even want you to grow as well. That's why the support, is coming. Evaluate and adjust. So whatever you are doing, as youth farmers, you need to come back. You need to test yourself again. Put a bit of test. Am I making it? The essence of business is to make profit. If you are not making profit, then you go back to the drawing board. Where have I made it wrong or got it wrong? So, and these are many other things that will help you to do well in your income. I also want to bring, greetings from Dr. Lego Afande. He ordinarily wanted to be here today, but because of the state assignment, he couldn't make it. So he sent his greetings to all the youth, and he's throwing his weight behind you. Any student or any youth that is ready to come into agribusiness, our doors are open to support you, to be with you, to guide you, to make sure that you succeed. Not only to serve your state, to do the, but other states, in Nigeria. Because earlier I told you that outside people are coming to your state. Countless of other who are also, going to your state to buy food. But I have some friends in Lagos. Whenever they want to stop, they come to Bolivia and other markets in the to get their fish. So this is to tell you that Oyo State have to do extra, more in the area of production and processing. I want to also appreciate the organizers for this wonderful and beautiful campaign to gather our youth together because of their importance in tomorrow's Thank you so much. For question and answer, if there's any.
Thank you for the presentation, sir. We look forward to seeing more of this, especially in this dispensation, to change the mentality positively. My questions are two. First one, during the time of Nasarawa, we discovered that many of the youth or people that are really venturing into that kind of agribusiness were not formally informed, and they only just ramped. Because I remember in the Ghana local government, those people in the Ghana to witness this. So they were just rampant, And at the end of the day, I still see, at least today, I think the people yesterday, when I told them about this program, I saw one of them who came from Nasarawa asked me. And that really pained us a lot. That would have been a great opportunity for those who are really in that kind of business. So I want to ask you, is this kind of facility or opportunity still going on, or that first journey has ended there because of what you eventually discovered? That's number two. For those who really want to venture into this kind of business, because I remember the Agribusiness areas, I don't know whether you know those areas where we normally get piece of lands that we can use for everything. You will lease it for about 4 years. Now they are not using it, and they ask to go and buy at exorbitant rate. Does government has the pre-land for those who are really interested in this kind of business to probably get or acquire, whether for lease or whatever, so that you're able to maximize its potentiality? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, the first question is on the issue of Nasarawa youth. How got them? Initially, some of the youths that applied during the period to pay their witness, it was online advertisement we made, and many of them applied, and then we had interactions with each other. We called them to interact with them. So, but in the course of doing that, gathering the information about them, we discovered that some of them are much more in one local government, than the other. So, what the organizers did then was also to consider we focused only those who are learned, who have gone to school, who have certificates. So, but the organizer said, no, we need to look inwardly. Let's see those who didn't even go to school at all, who have secondary school or drop out secondary school and are doing well. So we have to look towards the local government, each local government, asking the chairman to organize and look for those people who did not go to school and their farmers. So we got them and then we incorporate them into the one we had online. So we brought the two together to settle this. That was actually what happened. Then some of them, in the course of taking them to Nasarawa, they came late. Some came late while we were already, even when vehicle had moved. Some took the risk to even go to Nasarawa, which we have warned them, don't do that. That will not allow you to enter that particular, we call it CSS fund. So we will allow you to enter. So, and then because we have already taken the biometric capture of those guys. So that is why it's much more difficult for people that do not possibly, see their names, or they were omitted for one reason or the other. About 29,000. So 29,000 applied, and the 3,300 was taken, and that was how we started with it. Yeah, for the entrance, or for whether there's going to be opportunity with us. So that's why I'm appealing to our youth to further change their orientation. I witnessed what happened when we brought 100 of them into Fashional Farm. We give them 1 hectare per person. Government cleared the land for them. Government did the pre-planting operations for them. Government planted, but government did the first weeding for them. So, and then we asked them to take over. This is to reduce, stress on them. Even though we invited them to come and see the operations, so that they can also see the practical practical activity with what they are taught in the store. Lo and behold, I was saying it in my speech, very few of them stayed. At the end of the day, very few of them, maybe less than 20 stayed. So at the end of the day, this wasn't, encouraging. And then that land was just for another thing. Because the intention of giving that land was to recycle. That is, if this set goes, other one will also come. So that was the essence. But at the same time, for some of them who have gotten, even after them, many have gotten their own personal farm. Maybe inherited from their parents, maybe some lease, some even bought. So then we are supporting them. So in such a program, have some that are not favor, and I will still continue to complete. They will not say right what they are going to run. So this is what happened in this as well. Presently, I will answer to whoever wants or needs to apply. But we have over-exhausted this land. When we started this process, it was as if it would not come through. In fact, Dr. Ibo Akode used to say from time to time that it got to a time he sat down and he thought that hope he has not missed the road. Hope is not doing the wrong thing. When the investors were not coming, when things were not happening. But by the time we also introduced some processes toward this, we discovered, okay, we need to do a summit. So we had series of summits in Nigeria. We had international summits that brought in investors. Now, sir, we are oversubscribed. Many investors are coming to look for land, to look for factory. It's exhausted. But we are hoping to start Ijaya and Irua, where other opportunities will also come. So I will not limit those who need that. I will advise them to write a letter of intent to the Director General of OYSADA, and then let's see their expression. Because in the area they want to collaborate with OYSADA or your stakeholders in that area. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Sir.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for taking time because it's very helpful. It's enticing. Study the issue about people. We also have a deal and go now. I have two concerns. The first one is the issue of continuity. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Singh candidate said this is here in office. And from your presentation, this came to the limelight when you became governor. And I think the last maybe about a year left. Only Fasola will point back to that they have started implementing this thing there. You said there is coming on board, the war is coming on board. And Nigeria doing what we are. Continuities are needed. Projects on assaulting are needed. Are we sure that this laudable speed will continue? Even if governor party won the election, we've seen cases where the successor fear in another area of interest. So how do we sure that this laudable speed will be continued? Because the way you are saying it, I think, is replaced for us in a world map in the nearest future. I want to address this issue of continuity. Secondly, sir, I think enough awareness is not given to this scheme. Enough awareness. Because some people, like what we said, some people are being interested and probably one way or the other. Maybe they are in a remote area where they are not access to or cannot access this information. So I think in future we need to give enough awareness to this kind of, because government is doing a lot, the way you highlighted what is true and the support and opportunity being presented to the youth and the farmer generally. My third concern is the issue of security. It is a major problem that will debar the thriving of agribusiness in Nigeria today. Or what the sense of you planting acres of land and overnight you go back to the farm, the whole thing has gone. Maybe you are planning to harvest and the following day you are no more there, or your life is being threatened. I remember a man from Ibarapa, not quite long ago, in December. You know what to the farm. I think the man was killing on his farm and some other thing like that. So this area needs to be addressed so that the youth who are campaigning to that they show interest in farming will actually develop that interest without fear of being attacked as the case may be. And they need to be also encouraged, because some of them, you said it, that as farmer they want to live in the village and we provide all these necessary social amenities where we are establishing it so that they feel belong. Because most of these youth, they are into all these digital something and they require constant social presence of this electricity network and what they do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for these questions. The first question is about the continuity of what present government is doing. I want to assure us affirmatively let us know that from the inception of the establishment of OYSADA, what we call sustainability had been planned. So our sustainability in the area of firstly, let the investors drive it. That's why OYSADA is driven by the investors. So in the initial phase of that we had the farm settlements created by the government, the old Western regional government. It was GPO, government design, government build, government operates. But this time around, we said no. The Vice Excellency says it times without number that government does not have business in doing business. Let's put business in the hands of individual investors that will make it better. So in that we have given the power to operate to the investors, to drive their businesses. That is one. Apart from the normal MOU, government has had with them, apart from what we call lock and key, we have had with them, apart from watertight agreements, we have had with them. We also believe that for an investment that is generating money, that is generating funds, that is increasing the IGR of states, there will not be enough reason for another government to come on board, even from the same political lineage, to now stop such. I want to tell us that the rate of OYSADA support to the IGR of this state cannot be quantified. And we could see the effort of His Excellency, the Governor of Oyo State, where he took the IGR of Oyo State from 1.5–1.6 billion per month to 8 billion naira per month without stress. Thank you. Seamlessly, he has done that. Seamlessly. So likewise, the business of agriculture, we are talking about the agribusiness. So it will be difficult for a government that wants progress, a government that wants development to come on board and stop where the productions is being done, where the employment generation of our youth is massive, to stop and stop that activity. And I also want to assure us that many of our investors, they are also vast in the business of how to put things straight, particularly when it comes to issue of law. They will not also speak over it. And when such has been done, So since you definitely belongs in the local perspective, and then that aspect of closing such a centers that we will never cover. The other one is the access to information and the awareness. Yes, maybe we have not been doing enough in the past, but we are now doing. For instance, the flag up that's going to come on tomorrow on Monday by His Excellency is also being circulated. As we are driving here, we had it in the radio. So virtually all the media houses in the and even beyond, I mean, in New City, even beyond, have this information. Just yesterday, His Honor, Dr. Bibo Akode, granted the press interview to tell people what is next. And that process is going to continue so that information will be adequately disseminated. The third one is on the security issue. Yes, security. We still want to thank the government for their efforts they have made in creating Agribusiness. Governor was saying the other time that if you move from Ibadan, you was assuring people from Ibadan by 10 p.m. in the night, and you are going to Shaki, so that means you are going to get to Shaki maybe around 1 p.m. Or maybe 12:30, that you get seamlessly. People say, your Excellency, because you have security, and say, okay, if I have security, what are people that are coming opposite me, who does not even have the knowledge that the governor will be coming, and they put it to the test. So governor rules from the matter is nice, and he went as far as this town in the area. So even at that period, they saw the people also flying the road, which I, that standing before you, I also fly sometimes. So this security, but the security within the locality is being handled by the locality. Even though if you look at the rate of security personnel in Nigeria with the Nigerian population, is nothing to write home about. So we cannot leverage on that. But we are leveraging on the local security in which government is doing massively, to make sure that they are in place, they safeguard, the local people, apart from one or two incidences that happens in the interiors. So these are many others. And even beyond that, the government of Oyo State has just procured 2 helicopters for surveillance, for proper surveillance of the interiors and then all the borders in Oyo State. So having done this, the security is not for government alone to do. The security is for everyone. That is why even within the confine of OYSADA, we also instructed our investors, apart from the fact that the state security are here, you also get your personal security so that things will work well. And if you believe with me, you will see that things have been so peaceful in Oyo State compare what is happening in some other parts of the north. We had some visitors about 3-4 months ago from the north. They are so fearful. When we were to come to Fashola, they insisted that we should get the escort to drive or to lead us. But we convinced them that no, Fashola is peaceful or yes, it is peaceful. And lo and behold, we went and then we came back without any issue. So, but government is still working. Government is not sleeping on the oversight. Government is still working on the area of security. The social amenities, yes. If you look at the collaborations of Oyo State government with other international partners and all the structures we are building these structures in the rural community. The essence is to develop the rural community. For instance, for those of us that knows Fashola Farm Settlement maybe in the last 60 years, we know that it was a serious area, even for one to move from Oyo to Isheyin. Unfortunately, Fashola is in between Oyo and Isheyin. Now, when we started cultural development, we still some arts between Oyo and Fashola with serious effort. But now, despite the fact that the 35.5-kilometer road Oyo Fashola Oyo Isheyin Fashola road is a federal government road. His Excellency the Governor of Oyo State still believes that these are not federal government people. They are my people. I will build the road, and he fixed the road. Within 4 months, he fixed the road. So, and so many others, you look at the road network in Oyo State, the first road construction done by the state from 65 kilometers from Moniya to Isheyin is towards agricultural development. So, the longest road in Oyo State so far, that's Isheyin Purpose of Commercial, 76.69 kilometers. He built it within a very short period. This is to facilitate movement of agricultural produce in and out of our farms, and the social amenities has also been brought along. Look at the cost of roads, the cost of lands, even along those axes. So it has gone up. So, and these are many other things is what government is doing to improve the social amenities. Fashola today has constant life, has good road. His Excellency has promised, the project is going to do a 6-lane, 6-lane road between, from the junction to the main hub, and then it's about 6 kilometers. So, and then if you get to that place now, development has started, land has gone, electricity that was not there before will be there. The mass for network that are not there for long will be there. So these are the way of developing the rural structure. We have so many other new projects that are coming up that we have targeted the rural communities, not in town, the rural communities. So, and these are the way of bringing the social amenities outside your heart to our rural communities.
Thank you sir for this beautiful session. I'm excited about all that you have said, and I'm very passionate about agriculture. So my question is this, how can I be a part of what your agency is doing? And the second question is this opportunity open to only or your indigenous? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will start from the second question. The governor of Oyo State, an amazing person, is the father of all. And in all his doing, he has made us to realize that he's the father. Look at the recent employment that was, made by Oyo State. He gave an executive order to employ everybody living in Oyo State, whether you are Hausa or you are Igbo, as much as you are he lives in Oyo State. So they employ them in as much as they meet the criteria. So the issue of tribe is so silent in all the activities of government in Oyo State. So I want to assure you, my sister, even if you are from Ghana, in as much as you are living in Oyo State, you will definitely be treated well, right? So entrance, I was talking the other time, depending on which angle are you looking at it. If you are an investor, when you see us, we ask you to write a letter of intent. We want to know what you are doing, and also to know the area of collaborations we want to have with the state. So in this way, we will establish a communication line which will guide you and support you, and also to guide your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello. Good morning, everyone. Sir, I appreciate you for giving us this kind of enlightenment. And for us to make a special state. We thank our government, so we have to wait for those other programs he has been putting down. Well, we have answered most of the questions I really wanted to ask you from lots of people have asked. But the only area I want to go into is that you have said all these things. One thing is very important, as you said, government providing a healthy environment for businesses to thrive. And in the return, government kind of the revenue, and if kind of go my back, I don't go back. Now, what efforts is the state making to ensure that all the programs are really accessible to the grassroots? We have some groups who are ready to do it. They have passions, and they have some sponsors who are ready to partner with them. But accessibility to the program is not somehow too burdensome. Can you please enlighten us on this program? How ordinary youth can walk into the office of who is assigned and say, I am interested, and get all the parameters to which you can access the facilities and do it. If the government will not come there, you are not saying that government should come. But you should give it, as I said the other time, that government employed about 100 people and only 20 were able to do it. That, I think those ones, they don't have interest. You just add the opportunity. But what about people who really have interest and they want to contribute? How you get how easy access to the facilities? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your question and the passion to touch those who are less privileged, who are youths among us. Thank you, sir. I was saying in some of my replies that Oyo State Government has a wider doors open to everybody to be on the same pedestrian. If anybody comes to our office, we don't look down. In fact, we support those who think they don't have any. So because we consider their passion, which is most important. And I want you to know that even among the few that did well, these are the people who did not go to school. They can't write, but they did well because they have been doing it on their personal farm. So they came here, they got the opportunity, they did well. And when they sold their produce, we asked them to take the money. So effort has been made. That is why all our infrastructures development is in the village. The one presently at Ijayi, we had an engagement with the community the other time, and we were telling them that their children will be the first to be considered. Even as laborers, even as professionals, for those of them that are engineers, we will show up that will introduce you even to the company. But we had meeting with the companies. These are the set of people you are going to take when you start your project, and which they agreed. So it is in the mind of His Excellency the Governor of Oyo State to make sure that all were adequately employed. But I want to tell you, sir, that believe with me, this does not start from 2019. The unemployment did not start from 2019. If past governments have been doing this, we will not find ourselves where we are. The pressure will not be on this present administration. I want you to take the example from the retirees that the government of Oyo State paid from 2020, 2010, right? And is he assuring that by May 2027, nobody will be owned by Oyo State government? So likewise to our youth, I'm still assuring them, when they come forward, we'll sit together, we'll see which area can Oyo State government support you, which program can you benefit from. I want to assure us again that our doors are open to support the youth, to incorporate them into the system of agriculture, so that our food bank will continue to increase in the agricultural space. And that's what we are known for. In your speech, you said that we are paid centers. We have to be virtually in everything we do. I want to thank you, sir.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Concerning the factorization of land for farmers, I was with the extension Agribusiness
which they said the factorization will be launched on the before 15th of March. And I've not heard anything from the director. Does it mean if I don't have up to an hectare of land, maybe I have 2 acres land, does it mean they will not come and do the factorization for us? That's one. 2, we have to pay 50%, government will pay 50%. Am I right? This is important.
Thank you, sir. All what we are saying is let there be more productions, because the population of Oyo State is growing higher and higher every day. People have to eat. If you look at the structure of Oyo State and you see the level of moving from Lagos to Oyo State to Ibadan, you will know that we need more food. So that's why we are encouraging our farmers to scale up. The farmers are being on 1 acre, 2 acre, move on to 10 to 20, because there's no way it should be possible for a tractor to go to 1 acre or 2 acre farm that is about 5 kilometers apart from the other ones. So that's why we are encouraging our farmers to get more land, so that you get more opportunities, you get more people, you get more money. So the essence of coming into business is to make money. I want to make money. There is already made market for you. For instance, the investors that we have acquired in Fashola, they need raw material. They won't need raw material of 1 acre or 2 acre. They will need raw material of the farmer that is having 50 hectares of land, right? And I want to assure you that there are some farmers that have been getting paid to support them in their productions even before the harvest. The investor have to give them some money. Okay, what do you need? And then they enter into agreement. And that one is currently being done. But if it doesn't have some, how can it benefit? It will be much more, pretty difficult. So I want to encourage us, farmers that are here, let us scale up. Let's increase our acreage of land so that we can get more money. We can be better even among in the community, and can live a better life. Thank you, sir. So and then for the second one, yes, it's 50%. That's the beauty of it. This issue of 50% came up when His Excellency the Governor of Oyo State about 2 years ago. He had a stakeholder meeting with our farmers. For the first time, a governor called the core farmers and he sat among them and he asked them this direct question. He did not use any advisor. What are your problems? What are your challenges? And they told him this and this. In that sitting, about 4 things Governor of Oyo State using the executive power to do, and there's this relief, great relief on our farmers. So I want to assure you, if you increase your acreage, then the opportunity will come. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Mr. Lecturer for that beautiful addition. Now, my question is twofold. One, I want to recall several years back, in my primary school days, we used to sing ìwé kíkọ́ láì sí ọgbọ́ àti àdá kò ì pé o iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ iṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa ẹni kò ṣiṣẹ́ ká máa lè jáde. With that sir, I wonder what is happening now. As tight as our own space was then, we had a small garden beside our school, which every pupil in the school had his own space allocated to him.
farming. Now to be in Oyo State, maybe you are in a better position to inform us whether there are schools that have gardens. That is one. Two, you see, we all need energy to survive. And this energy will not come from the atmosphere. It will come from the heart. Now, I remember I think I was since Sunday he said, "Ebi o sọ̀rọ̀ fún alákọ̀wé tó so dáì náà, ebi o sọ̀rọ̀ fún." Meaning that everybody has to eat. And somebody has predicted that a time will come very soon when those who do not work will not eat. Now, I wonder why institutions like IRT, like IITA, and even the faculty of Agric in the University of Galilee cannot even feed their community. Now, sir, I remember there used to be an orchard at Olomsoro where you have various fruits, especially oranges, and the hot bags. You have them there. That space has given way to further construction now. Likewise, at Manhattan, you have this dairy farm. So I think that's why the one that has given way to further construction. Now, you have spoken consistently about Fashola, about farm treatment. You have spoken about the rural. What is happening to Akufo farm treatment, sir? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Daddy, for these learning questions and worry over this issue. I want to start for the two questions. I want to begin with the government policy in Nigeria. So there has been inconsistent government policy in Nigeria, particularly at federal government level. So for what you have spoken is all about government policies. And not only that, we have some silos that don't have anything, but at a stadium is all about government policies. So most of what you have spoken is about government policies. The IRT and ITA you have identified, they are not food producing companies. They are research institutes to support what the farmers are doing. So we have the extension agents, we have the research institutes, and then we have the farmers. We have these linkages that brings the three of them together. So, but when the linkages are broken, possibly for one reason or the other, so it will take government again to bring it up. For one that concerns Oyo State, I've been an extension agent for almost 2 decades, and I know the effort that the government has made in educating our farmers in technology, new initiative, technology. So to make sure that they increase their food production. So we cannot sometimes stop government from whatever they want to do when it comes to policy, making a policy execution. So it is very difficult. But the one I will go straight to is the Akufo issue. Right? Our state governments have about 9 farm settlements in the state. When OYSADA came on board, we acquired the first 3. Right? That's Akufo farm settlement, Fashola farm settlement, and the rural farm settlement. Right? Akufo farm settlement, yes, is a farm settlement created by governments, by Old Western region, that has been on for many years. But when this government came on board, there was a thorough research that
done on what is happening to each of these farm settlements, we discovered that Agri-farm settlement has been grossly enclosed. People are building structures, people are taking over government lands, and the main purpose that was meant to another. People that are even having holdings, they are selling their holdings, not even leasing, they are selling their holdings, and there are evidences that they have sold their holdings. So, and this, with many other reasons, puts government, into a very deep thought and see that how we can rescue that place. And if you believe with me, for those that knows that farm settlement is already almost the same thing with Olokoro. So it is in town. How many people do you want to take to work? Because there are so many of in the front, at the back, at the side, they will coach and build their structures. So that is why government has taken the decision. There's what we call urban agriculture. Yes, you spoke about school gardens that are no more. It's all about government policies. Urban agriculture, your city has come to replace the school garden or home gardens. Yeah, home gardens. Like for Afro, you have spoken about, some section of Afro will be sold, and then will be sold to farmers who will build their small structure and also, practice urban farming within that structure under an agreed MOU, so that we can resuscitate the farm activities been gone extinct in Africa, and also for some of them that are doing well, we leave them there. Nobody is sending anybody. Those you might see acquire those places illegally. We have confirmed this. We are working. In fact, my colleagues are here, so we are working on it in the last 6 months. So they are sitting down there. So we are working on this in the last years. Nothing that government of Oyo State from 2019 to now that will do. It is a calculated attempt. A deliberate attempt, that will not affect even the masses. And those are the actions that government saw that make them to take whatever they are taking. But it is not auto crazy, kind of decision. No, we call those who are in charge of councillors association. We had a series of meetings with them to agree on what we are doing. So that is for some of the current governments properties that have been taken over, is all about government policies. So which when those from, especially those who are already in the heart of every city, in the heart of town. So we see that those estates you mentioned, they are in the heart of town already. These are people as well, they are in the heart of town already. That's why culture has been gone, they have been going on indiscriminately. But government have to do something. We have to safeguard the diminishing of food bank in Oyo State. So food bank have to increase. It's not to increase. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Rafi Mojo. I want to ask you, because the day before yesterday, the woman stand up here and she said she went for the cassava production. She farmed on the land and he called the sons to finance the farm. But eventually, before she could harvest, the value of the cassava had gone down, and eventually the proceeds, when he sold the cassava, is nothing to work of the house. So now to remember in the last, maybe formally they have a marketing board that they are reviving the farmer from all these kind of problems. So the government will buy directly from the farmer and they sold to the public at subsidized rates. Is there any form of that kind of policy so that the local farmer that cannot have access to all these opportunities that are available will be able to get it. Because I think it was last few weeks, my son came to me that he has got the jam form, and I told him, what do you wanted to go for? And he said that and I told him that I want to dance to. And the next day, he came to me and said, the conference is next tomorrow. What do I say about the I said I want to go and reach? And I told him what is in Agric. Because I remember everything about investing now is free. Why is there a great choosing? But for you to standing up here now, you have definitely know that there is a real opportunity in Agric. So I'm talking about passion. So for this younger youth that want to go for this Agric, as I said, so is there any platform? Because when you catch them young, before they get there, they'll be able to know where and where they will get such an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me start from your first question. The phenomenon that came upon Nigeria Farmers Association, let me put it that way, is as a result of those who can set, who can analyze critically what is happening in the country. It still boils down on public policies, right? For those that are very close, or you are closer to the importation of all these materials in the country now, you will know that there's government policy. Things were so high some months back, fine. Government is also trying to fight the high cost of things. So in that case, government, took that drastic, action to make sure that the price of commodity come down. But unfortunately, sir, let him follow by a guide. Let him follow whatever he wants to read in university. Most times we say that the essence of going to universities is to increase your knowledge base. There are some that even read medicine that are not using medicine as a profession today. So, but it depends on how you can, develop yourself more. How you can think out of the box, on that particular work, on that particular course you are doing in university. So I also want to encourage, and let me shock you, that many of the industrialists in agriculture today, they did not study agriculture at the university. They are billionaires, they did not, but they have invested massively in agriculture. So please, whatever my friends want to read, let him go, because I will support him to read agriculture, because the time is coming that we will be looking for them. They will become upscale, particularly if they are so versatile, in that particular course of study, and they also develop themselves more. Please, I want to give opportunity to this madam. She's the listener of madam. She's talking with her. Madam in green, yeah. So that we can balance the gender. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Please, can you please appreciate our facilitator for this wonderful session? Thank you very much. You have indeed dwelled into an area that is, aside medicine, is another area that is human sustaining. Please, another round of applause.